of the Coffee Q&A live stream. I'm Jay, your host, and if you're just joining us for the very first time, we do this live stream most Monday through Fridays from starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So how's it going? Hope you're doing well. This one, it took a little bit of time to get this one rolling because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do this one. But right now I'm at a place called Meriwether Post Pavilion in Columbia, Maryland. And I'm actually across the street, kind of across the street from a place called the Food Market, which is one of my clients in coffee wholesale. And so whenever I come to do deliveries to wholesale clients, usually what I do is I'll actually get a coffee. Right? So this is a coffee, the Food Market Columbia. Great little place. If you've never been here, over here in the area, come check it out. The coffee shop is, of course, really nice, and the girls are very enthusiastic and very earnest in their coffee making. But it's also attached to a restaurant called the Food Market Columbia. And the Food Market is a really great restaurant owned by a friend of mine, Chad Goss, who, and that's part of the reason why, we do coffee together, because when Chad started, Kent, how are you? I used to have a shop in Baltimore City called Spro, well, of course. And we had a shop, and then finally, after a couple of years that I had been there, in 2010 or 2011 or something like that, Chad opened a restaurant called the Food Market in down the street, and so we became fast friends, and we've been friends ever since. And when he opened this location, he was like, "Hey, this is probably like in 2001." He asked me, he was like, "Hey, would you be willing to do coffee with us?" And I was like, "Of course, I'm happy to do it." And so we're going to eventually have a coffee shop component, and that opened about a year or so ago. And it's been doing pretty well, and they service not just clients that walk in through the door, but they also service the restaurant. So whether you go into the restaurant or into the cafe, you can get really nice quality coffee. And I'm the one that makes it, so it's gonna have some decency. And actually, I was in there earlier, and I was like, one of my old customers walked in, and I was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" He's like, "Oh man, how you doing?" It's like, so that was good. But usually when I come in, I'll get a cup of the brewed coffee, and this is just our house coffee, the House Nation, and it is a nice black coffee. And what I like to do is and this is true with any of our clients, I like to go in and have a coffee, just to support them, but also to have a taste and see, are there any things that we need to address on my side? Like, how is the roast profile? How is the flavor of the coffee? Is it holding up after, maybe a week or so of it being here? And also, more importantly, I want to know, are there any things that we need to address? Like, not too long, every once in a while, when you're dealing in a busy operation, they've got, in this place, let's say they have multiple FETCO brewers and multiple FETCO shuttles. And so they're shuttling it between the restaurant, and they have maybe like 6 or 7 of them, and they're running around everywhere. And the staff is always charged with cleaning them and keeping them clean. It's really important to keep your products clean, like your vessels clean, because it's holding coffee for a long period of time. And so coffee residue and oils will build up, even though it's stainless steel on the inside, it'll still build up. And over time, it can lead to rancid flavors. So I'm tasting to see, are there any off flavors that we need to address? And every blue moon, or maybe actually only once in the last year or so, maybe year and a half that they've been open, did we come across a situation where, good morning, street soldier, where or Solider, sorry, not soldier, Solider, where I tasted the coffee, and it had a little bit of, good morning to you, power plant, had a little bit of off flavor. So I just called up Deja, and I was like, "Hey, there's this coffee that I had a little bit of tinge to it. Just let's make sure that we have everyone make sure that they're checking all the air pots, make sure that they're clean." And she was like, "Well, we do it." I said, "No big deal. I know that there's so many of them, and it's very easy in a busy program where maybe just one of them doesn't get cleaned as often. So it's like, it's not a big deal, but just to make sure, because we always want to make sure that the coffee is as good a quality as possible. Because, you have guests that walk in, and first-time guests, they're going to be a little bit suspicious. And once if they don't have a great time, a great experience, then they may not be, they may not have the proclivity to come back. And that's what you want. You don't want to, in retail, you don't want to give the people the reason not to come back. You want to try to give them every reason so that they're enthusiastic about what they experience and then they can return. So I grab a coffee and I just like to drink it. Really, I'm just drinking coffee. It's not really a big deal. Power plant says no one cares as much as the owner, and that's, to a certain extent, I think that's very true. I do believe that it's about the culture that you build and the kind of people that you find to come along your journey with you. Like, you know, I think it's very easy for someone like myself who has been in an ownership position to be like, well, you know, nobody does it as well as I do. But the reality has been, in my experience, that, you know, I've had many people that do it better and take as much care and ownership as I do. Ultimately, I'm the one that can't leave, right? For me, the big difference in ownership is that every morning, like I would laugh before, like every morning I would look in the mirror and think, you are the only one SOB that I can't fire. I could fire everybody else, but I can't fire you. And that's the hardest part of ownership, is that you're the one that has the ultimate responsibility. Everything rides upon you. Everything rides upon, all the success rides upon the decisions you make. Good morning to you, Mom. Right? And it doesn't mean that, and, you know, it's a lot of times you're not making the decisions, but hopefully you have good people that are making decisions that are in the right direction. And I think, like, I talk to a lot of owners, and especially in forums, and they're always like complaining about their staff, complaining about this, and it's like, to me, it's like the big difference is that you don't have, it's not, you're not taking enough time to get the right people, right? And power plant makes the point about, you know, positions in craft don't pay well, and positions in craft have never paid well. But I don't think that the level of commitment and care that a person gives is necessarily tied and commensurate to the amount of money they're making. Like, a lot of times, the best people that I've met in any of the industries that I've worked in were never driven by money. They were driven by something else, and they had an attention to detail that couldn't be replicated because you gave them, you know, $500,000 a year. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think that pay is very important, and people do need to make a very good living, or a good living that they can, you know, what my concern is, like, how, and I can't say that I've been successful in this, right? It's a very difficult proposition. Like, how do you make a position, let's say barista, like, we want to have barista be respected as a craftsman, and have a good future. And to me, the idea of a good future for anyone is that they can have their job, they can make a living, and that living can provide for them to have a family, to get married to someone, have children, and have a future for their children. To me, that would be the ideal. And we, in this world, in this capitalistic, like, America, we make it very difficult for that. It's very, you know, for a variety of reasons. But the basic, you know, thing is that, let's say you have a coffee shop and you're doing $250,000 a year, or maybe even $500,000 a year, you know, and you're running 12 hours a day. So you've got to have staff to cover that. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. Street soldier. Oh, it is street soldier. I thought it was street soldier. Okay, so street soldier. But, you know, Busa, it makes sense, because, you know, you're the Hayabusa guy on the streets tearing it up. So street soldier makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. So, but I think that, you know, how do we get to that point of making that? And I don't know. It's very difficult. Like, if you're doing, like I said, if you're doing $250,000 a year, $500,000 a year in gross revenue, you know, you've got to try to keep your rent under 10%. All of your costs, you've got to keep them under 30%. Then your cost of goods, you know, another 30%. And then you have 30% left over for your staff. You know, this is the ideal, right? 30, 30, 30, 10. And gives you net profit of 10, or it gives you gross profit of 10. And it's a difficult proposition. So, yeah, and what I mean by that is that, let's say you make $300,000 a year in gross revenue. So let's say you parcel that 300. Let's say you make 300,000. Let's say $330,000. So you've got now $100,000 for your operational costs, $100,000 for your cost of goods, and then another $100,000 for your labor. And then you have theoretically $30,000 now for your gross profit, which hopefully you can take and not just, blow, you can park it somewhere and maybe make it grow somehow. But $100,000, so you're talking about $330,000 a year gross revenue, $100,000 for staff. And if you, in order to make that, let's say you're operating 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, it becomes then very difficult to, how do you split that $100,000 into wages so that people can have a future? And if we say, oh yeah, we're going to give them $20,000 a piece, you got 5 staff. Well, now you have to also consider it. All of that percentage cover, that 100,000 has to cover ancillary costs. So, depending on your state, you probably have to add another 35% to your base price, right? So if you're paying someone $20,000, you're really spending 27, is that right? 27,000? 35%, upwards of 35%. Yeah, I think that's right. So your effective ability, you can really, if you want to pay them $20,000 a year, you really can only have 4 people. And is 4 people enough labor, is enough manpower to cover the hours that you need to operate in order to make that $330,000? So these are a lot of the functions that small coffee shop operators are dealing with and have to face. And so it's one thing to say that people should make more, and they should, because it's cost so much to live in America today. How can you afford to even exist? But the economics of a small mom and pop coffee shop make it very, very difficult to do that. So that's why you see a lot of owners working, and basically, they've created $30,000 jobs a year for themselves, which is, is that even worth it? From a financial reward statement, like, does it make sense? Like and that's one thing that people were always, I was always kind of concerned about, is like, I don't want to have spent untold hundreds, thousands of dollars to create a job for myself that I would have, I could have made $30,000 a year or $25,000, $20,000 a year making, right? That seems crazy, right? The idea is, hopefully when you do business, that you're going to be able to make some level of profitability that makes all the effort and the cash outlay worthwhile. But some people are very good at it. Some people are not so great at it. And some people just, end up a little bit disillusioned by it. But anyway, like I said, we wanted to, when we're dealing with clients or whatever, we want to taste the coffee. And I just like to just get the coffee as it is, straight out of the air pod, just to have a taste, because that's how they're making it, and I just want to see what it tastes like. So I'm tasting not just for any kind of defects or issues that may be, with operations, but also, how is the brew recipe holding up? Are we able to maintain the standards that we're trying to set, right? And when you're dealing with multiple staff, there's always that possibility that things are going to go a little bit awry. And so once you find things that may be a little bit awry, then it's about gentle correction. I always believe in gentle correction. Like I have been that person that has like raged and gotten all like Gordon Ramsay on people, but as I got older and more in control of my craft, really, I think a lot of that occurs when you're like, you don't really have the skills, or you don't really have the chops as well as you should. So you kind of compensate for it with anger or bravado to like cover that up. I think I'm beyond, hopefully I'm beyond. Well, I'm not that beyond that. I'm still prone to human nature. All right, so let's have a taste here. Oh, all right. Clean, sweet, good amount of bitterness. This coffee is not meant to be like the light, bright coffees that a lot of you really enjoy. This is meant to be very like traditional kind of American coffee that's very clean, very sweet, but very accessible. Really, the idea behind the House Nation is that it's something that can be widely appealing at a medium roast profile. That I think that a lot of people that are like regular people, not enthusiasts, when they come into contact with enthusiast level coffee, this kind of bright, light, high note kind of coffee, it's a bit off-putting. It's a bit like, oh, that's kind of weird. Unless they're seeking it out. If they just come across it, they're like, oh, that's weird. But that's why when with this blend, we developed it so that it is very approachable. Devin says bravado is saying is like saying you like vegetable. No, I mean some people do. Actually, I had this robusta many years ago from Nish Patel in India. He had a coffee that I thought was brilliant coffee, and I thought it was brilliant because it was such a weird tasting robusta. It had very strong tomato notes, and I was like, I should use that coffee to make maybe a coffee encapsulated like bubbles that are like encapsulated in red. So you kind of like, oh, these are little cherry tomato coffees. But anyway, so the idea behind this is that it's approachable and familiar, because the idea of this coffee is that it's a gateway drug. It's the gateway drug, right? We want you to come into, let's say, Spro or even to the food market coffee, and you taste it and you're like, oh, this is good. I enjoy it. I'm going to come again. And they come again, and you come again, and you come again, and then you can try other coffees. Once you've reached a point of trust with the shop, then you can get into more experimental type coffees. So that's kind of the idea behind this, and that's kind of the idea behind what we kept at Spro, especially at Spro, where we're very like out there as far as the coffees that we offered. This was the gateway. This was the gateway. It's like people walked in and they're like, "Can I get a coffee?" And we don't, you go to some of these places and they want to give you like a whole like rigmarole. We don't want. I never wanted rigmarole. It's like if you walked in and you're like, "Hey, can I get a coffee?" That communicates to me and to our team that you're probably new to our world and you want to try something, but you don't really know what you're doing. You don't really know what you want yet. So we're going to give you this very approachable coffee that is very nice, that you can like learn about. And then eventually, as you learn more about the coffee and about us and get familiar and we build trust with you really, then you might be like, oh, what else is on your menu? Well, now we have this crazy coffee from Uganda that has these crazy, like funky notes. You know, that's when you get them, right? All right, so the coffee is what I expect. A little bit of bitter, clean, sweet, not too roasty. Well, I guess some of you might think it's too roasty. Did I miss any thoughts? No, okay, good. All right, so what I also did I grabbed one of this is a newer item that I haven't seen before. They have a cinnamon roll. I was like, ooh, cinnamon roll in coffee, looks good, look at that. So one of the prep cooks in the kitchen, Stephanie, she makes this, and I was like, oh, Stephanie, you're so amazing, Stephanie. I have a secret crush on Stephanie. Now, maybe not so secret because I just said it on this live stream. But she does a great job. She's been with the restaurant since it opened. So I've talked to her a lot over the years, and she's one of the prep cooks. So she's like a true slayer, like just a slayer in the kitchen. Like you just kicks it out. I'm like damn. And that's one thing that I really find enjoyable is that you meet people that are slayers, killers in their craft, and you're just like, man, they just work so amazing. And you just watch them how they work. You're like, wow, there's just poetry in the way they work. All right, so this is Stephanie's cinnamon roll. I should ask her like next time, like, hey, what's your? Now, of course, it's cold outside, and I'm sitting here in the cold, and it's been sitting around, so it's going to be, of course, a little bit harder, not harder, but not as, when it's not as pliable. Powerplant says, hilarious, my comments are showing again. Not even negative this time, not even negative. I have only seen, I don't know, you said this one about also Bob's Red Mill. Oh, no, you said, look at Dr. Bronner's as a real gold standard for craft work pay. Oh, I see what you're saying, okay. And then also, I only saw the Bob's Red Mill, and I was like, is he talking about flour? I like funky people. Yeah, funky people are good, and that's what I was saying earlier. Is like, a little more bready than, let's say, like Auntie Anne's. No, not Auntie Anne's, but Cinnabon. Cinnabon's super like mushy or like soft. This has a little more breadiness, right? You can see the crumb here. So a bit more resistive in the chew. But still very nice. Like if I warm this up, I bet it'd be even killer. But like I said, we were talking about that earlier. It's like I remember a number of the staff that I've hired were amazing, just amazing people. Like one of my number one person, Sue, for a few years. Gosh, like I didn't have to worry about anything. Like you have someone like that, and they are a joy to work with. They're amazing talents. They work great with customers, welcoming the guests. They know the product. They carry the mission. It's like they're just golden. They're just golden. I've had quite a few people like that. But the key is that you have to take the time to find them. And sometimes you make a mistake. Like one time I kind of like, Cinnamon Roll is a Hello Kitty franchise. Really? I didn't know that, Peter. But like, I remember one point I did kind of like wane on my responsibilities. And to me, it's always about the leadership, right? Everything is great, then you got great staff. Everything is screwed, then it's the leader that's at fault, right? At the core, the leader is always the problem or the solution. Because and I remember one time for about maybe 6-7 months, I kind of was like lackadaisical in my responsibilities. So we kind of were losing our way, and I could see it and I could feel it. And I was like, how do we correct this? I said, I need to correct this. I need to make more drastic changes. So I hired on some new people, and I kept them, and I'll be honest, I kept them sequestered from everybody else on staff. Like I worked with them, I trained them personally. I didn't let anyone else train them because I didn't want anyone else to train them because I didn't want anyone to impart, what I would see as bad habits or things that are off-brand for us. So I wanted to bring them on, and then after I got them ready, they didn't work with anyone else except for me. They didn't work together. They knew everybody, but they didn't get to work with them. They only worked with me. And so finally, when they were ready to come online, I sat everyone down and the staff, I said, hey, we need to go in this new direction. We're going to make these corrections. And I want everyone to come along with it. But unfortunately, when you have a group of people that are used to one way, it's very difficult for them to make a transition to something tighter. And they did, and not everyone in that crew didn't last through attrition. Oh, actually, one of them did last. And what am I saying? One of them was able to continue on and rise to the occasion. And he's still a great barista today. But it was for the better because suddenly everything was improving. But why did that happen to me? Because I fell off of the game. I fell off my game, and things suffered because of it. So with any of this, it's always about constant, gentle pressure. Right? You have standards that you want to hold up to. You always have to keep pushing on those. You can't let up on it. You have to be relentless. The lid doesn't hold on very well. See, this is the problem in America today. 12-ounce coffee cups. 4 years ago, 12-ounce coffee cups, or actually 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, 12-ounce American-made coffee cups were like $25. 4,000. And then it escalated significantly. And then finally, this American company, but they bought a lot of Chinese products. They brought in these Chinese-made paper cups. Again, we're back down to $30 a case. So when you look at like $60 a case versus $30 a case, it's kind of like there's no more choice anymore, right? Like you could choose the American one, which honestly is in many ways a superior product. The walls are thicker. And this is true with plastic cups and paper cups. The walls are thicker. The lids are heavier. But you know, it's difficult. It's difficult. And everybody's switching to these. And so, I mean, we did. There was just really no more. Devin says it's corporate greed. I mean, I don't deny that there's probably a part of that that is corporate greed, but I mean, maybe the costs have gone up, but unlikely. One of the board members years ago on the Specialty Coffee Association of America, or now Specialty Coffee Association, they were telling me, you know, we have to offer the executive director, you know, $400,000 or whatever it was at the time. I think now the ED gets like almost $800,000 a year for a coffee association, because that's commensurate with what people at the corporate CEO level make. And I was like, that's crazy, dude. Power Plant said, that's a sad story. Oh, I never had a boss I thought was great. Oh, that is sad. That is sad. Peter says, I always try to use my own coffee cup. That's a good idea. And Peter says, Cinema Roll is a white dog. Is a white dog. Oh, gotcha. So it's a character in Hello Kitty. I thought it was a franchise of Hello Kitty, like a store where you could go buy cinnamon roll. Cinnamon roll dog. I would love that. When you get a corrugated paper cup, it's a pleasure. Oh my. Oh, you mean the ones that have the corrugations built into it like this? Those are cool, but they're also much more expensive. Which goes back to the whole game. Like, if you're an average mom and pop, and let's say you make $250,000 a year, $250,000, so you now have $80,000 a year to spend on all of your cost of goods, which includes your paper cups. Double or half is like, that's a serious proposition for that operation. My crush with Stephanie is still there. PowerPoint says, the story about your lapse in management leading to losing your old staff. Gotcha. Yeah, from the employee perspective, it would have been tough because, you know, you've reached a point where you kind of were doing what you wanted to do. And now your ownership is coming in and saying, you got to make a change. It's tough all the way around. And, you know, I acknowledge the fact that if you're working in a position and your leadership is not leading, that's a very difficult position too. It sucks. It sucks all the way around. Like, I don't deny that. I was remiss in my duties. Peter says, if I get a takeout cup, I always ask for no latte art, and you just want to crush on their dreams, right? These baristas are all looking forward to, like, I'm going to make this guy a latte art. I'm going to make him a nice rosetta and hope it doesn't look like a penis. Embrace the penis, Peter. Devin says, I bet the most profitable cafe is an AeroPress or French press only drink menu. I mean, I think that simplifying your menu makes things so much easier, and I think can help gear you towards profitability. Like at Spro, you couldn't come and get multiple sizes. You wanted a coffee, you got a 12 ounce. That was it. There was no 8, there was no 10, there was no 16, no 20. Coffee was this, which made it super simple. And so it made choices very simple. But you know, I don't know, like you look at Starbucks, even though they've closed a bunch of stores, which by the way, I just saw a friend of mine who's in real estate, He's like, did you know they closed all the stores in the city? I was like, what? He's like, yeah, all 6 stores in Baltimore City have been shut down. And I was like, wow. I think they're worried about unionization. Because it seems kind of crazy to close all stores in a city. I would leave a couple. But despite the fact that they've been closing stores, they're still a wildly profitable company. They're still paying their CEO how many millions of dollars? I think it's $150 million. Devin says, I bring my own Kemper mug. Paige, good morning to you. Speaking of your thought, Peter, on no takeout later, I don't like that. I mean, I won't do it. For me personally, I won't do it because you know what? Hopefully the coffee's hot and dangerous, and I want to contain that as much as possible. In the center. Someone's not breaking. My car's actually in front of me, but somebody else getting car broken into. Paige wants to know, were all the Starbucks Baltimore unionized? I don't think so. I think one of them was one of the ones that made national news about trying to get unionization. I don't know if they actually ever succeeded. But you know, a company like Starbucks does not want to deal with unionization if they can avoid it. And honestly, nobody wants to deal with that. Even myself as a operator, I would not want to deal with that. That just seems like much more of a process. And I'm a 30-year member of a union, so don't get me wrong. I think unions are important. I think unions have a place. But the thing is that what troubles me the most about this talk of unionization over the last 10 years or so is that we are America, 2025. This country's been around now for 250 plus years. We've been through industrial revolutions. We've been through all of like the exploitation of children and labor and things like that. How is it that the greatest nation on the planet, or what touts to be the greatest nation on the planet, still has citizens who are suffering and feel like they need collective bargaining and union representation? That shit should have been gone a generation ago. So, while I personally would not want to have face unionization of my organization, the fact that people feel the need, that they would need representation by a union to force better working conditions, I mean, it says a lot. It says a lot about where we are as a nation today. Power Plant says, I haven't had a cinnamon roll in years, maybe a decade. You should get one. Why turn yourself away from cinnamon rolls? Paige says, I read the vast majority of the stores that Starbucks shut down were the ones. I'm not surprised. I mean, they need to bust unions very hard because you know what? It's going to eat at their profitability. You know, they're making wild profits. You pay your CEO $150 million a year. You're making great money. You're not hurting for anything. And if you are hurting, it's like false economy. It's like false accounting, I think. Paige says, because greed is king. I mean, this is capitalist America, so we're so hyped on capitalism. And Power Plant says, life makes hypocrites of us all. It does, it does. There's always parts that, of your life and things that you do that aren't always congruent with your own who you may want to be. Paige says, no CEO should be making that much more money than their employees. Oh yeah, that is, I agree with that. And it's hard to believe that just a generation or two ago, CEOs only made a small percentage or a small multiple than their average worker. You know, and that's a time when, like, you know, people could, like, and that's what goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, my concern as a barista, as a coffee operator, was always to, like, how do we make a future for our people? I mean, I don't know if it's possible anymore. Like, we've squeezed this system so pervertedly that I don't know how you can make that kind of money to have, because I would like to see baristas or coffee people have a future. And like I said earlier, I think a future means that they can have a job that they do that they enjoy, but they can also have a future, meaning they can have families, they can get married, they can have their own car, they can have their own house. I remember one time there's a guy, Kyle Glanville, he's a friend of mine. He was a, you know, kind of famous coffee dude. He was one of the guys that went out to open up Intelligentsia Los Angeles. And I remember when I saw Kyle in 2006, he was like looking for work because he'd just gotten released from his position. He was a barista. And then he went to work for Intelligentsia for Doug Zell and went out to LA, opened it up. And I remember I saw him one time that year and he was like, man, dude, I just bought a car. He said, I bought my first car. He was so excited because he finally was making enough money that he could buy a car. He bought a Volkswagen GTI, great car. But I was like, so like, I don't know, the way he said it and what he said to me just kind of blew me away. I was like, man, this is what we really want for people, so they can have enough money to enjoy their lives, right? Not just struggle to meet. And now we've got rents, $3,000 a month. Like, who the hell can afford that? Like, I don't know, like, you know, I think one of my nieces, you know, she was living in New York City. She was paying like, you know, $1,500 for a bedroom. And I was like, good Lord. And I know New York's always been expensive, but man. And these kind of prices are what you see, like, even in Baltimore, where it's supposed to be cheaper. And I was just telling someone that I know, you know, up in Philadelphia, I was like, you should move to Baltimore. Because she was like looking for a new place to work. And I was like, you should move to Baltimore. There's a good community of creators down here. And you can, it's relatively cheap. And I don't know if it's that cheap anymore. Peter says, I'm a capitalist. I want to be Bond villain rich. I think you're living in the wrong country for that, aren't you? Power Plant says $20,000 to $25,000 a year is not a living wage in the United States. It is not. It is definitely not. But like I said, if we go back to looking at a coffee shop operation, you're making, let's say that proverbial $330,000 a year, which makes the math just more simplified. You have $100,000 to spend, $100,000 to spend. 35% of whatever you're paying is going to have to go to all of your Social Security, Medicare, taxes, and all that. Maybe somewhere between 20 to 35. I mean, you guys can do the math. You guys know this. How do you make that work? I think it's very, very difficult to make that mathematics work. And you need to operate long enough to cover the hours to make that $330,000 in gross revenue. So it's like, man, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. Plus, you got high rents depending where you are, and you want, in order to make good money in coffee, you need to have a good location that's in high traffic where people will stop by and get coffee all the time. Then it becomes worth it. Then maybe you can push past $250,000 into like $500,000, $600,000. Like, I remember I got to a point where I was like, my friend was like, hey, you want to open a coffee shop? I said, sure. He said, how much do you think you need to make? I said, we need to make no less than $600,000. This is like 10 years ago. It's not worth doing unless it's going to do over $600,000 a year. And it's like $600,000. He was like, he was in a different industry. He was like, I don't think my shop makes that much money. I was like, yeah, but it's not worth it. And part of that was fueled by the thought that, you know, I read one of the guys I know at Starbucks corporate was like, yeah, man, the average store makes $600 a year. I was like, all right, that makes sense. Peter says coffee shop's all about location. Yeah, and the location, you know, you have to balance out how much can you make, right? Like how much it's going to cost. But the busier the location, typically the more expensive. So like if you used to be able to get a shop for $9 a square foot, that's pretty good. But you go to some really, really high traffic places, you're talking like 50 to 100 to 175 and up per square foot. And that's per month. That's a monthly, not like in the West Coast. I'm talking in the East Coast terms. West Coast, I remember I remember one time we were in Honolulu about 20 years ago, and we're looking at spaces, and the guy was like, I said, how much is it a square foot? And he's like, 225, and I was like, holy crap, 225, we're gonna sign right now. And then, but I didn't understand the difference back then. And then my friend was like, oh dude, that's per month. I said, what do you mean per month? So and here in the East Coast, when we talk about like square foot rents, like let's say 275, or let's just say $1. Let's say $1. Say $1 square foot. That means that we're on the East Coast when we say the square footage. Let's say we say $12 a square foot. That's a yearly price per square foot. But evidently on the West Coast and in Hawaii, when they say square foot, they mean by the month. So $12 a square foot in Baltimore would be $1 a square foot in Honolulu. And you're like, what? Like, you think like, oh, man, that's hella cheap. And then you're like, oh no, that's kind of pricey. So yeah, that never happened in Hawaii, because I was like, in Honolulu's, their retail like rents are like, from my perspective, I'm like, God, man, how do you even make that work? And a lot of people don't. A lot of people have a very difficult time making it work. A lot of the old businesses that I remember when we were younger have gone away because the rent just got too high. Power Plant says, we'll be very interested to see if Mamdani can win NYC. I hope he does. I think he would be a fresh breath towards New York City. Actually, I just was talking to another guy that I know that's in real estate, and we're talking about Baltimore City's mayor, who's his name is Brandon Scott, and evidently, I haven't really followed Brandon. Like, he's a young dude. He's really young. He's like in his 30s. Probably one of the youngest mayors in Baltimore City's history. And a lot of people are upset with him. And actually, David Sinclair, who is one of the Sinclair broadcasting people. So if you're familiar, Sinclair Broadcasting is a company that owns a lot of ABC and Fox affiliate stations around America. So they've got crazy money. And evidently, David Sinclair was funding Sheila Dixon, one of the former mayors of Baltimore, as a challenger to Brandon Scott. It pumped in crazy amounts of money, evidently, but I don't think she's going to do well. But it was interesting because Sheila Dixon is very Democrat. David Sinclair is a big Fox Trump MAGA guy, funding Democratic candidates. So, Paige says Sinclair is part of what drove Kimmel to be taken. Absolutely. And they're here. They're actually my neighbors. Sinclair Broadcasting's headquarters is like maybe a quarter mile from our roasting space, our shop space. So interesting. So I kind of was like thinking, well, I think I like Brandon better now. Paige says they own my own liquor. They probably own everyone's local ABC. Really. They have crazy money. They have the money that Peter wants to have. These super yacht and minions that they have that. Paige says capitalism can be good, but this era of it is grotesque, and we're constantly heading more. Yeah, we are. I don't disagree. Devin says the only thing I see is that if coffee is only for coffee's sake, there will be no change. But if coffee influenced society, then there will be change because the problem is larger than coffee. I'm not sure if I follow your thought there, Devin. Let's see. The only thing I see is that coffee is only for coffee's sake, there will be no change. But if coffee influences society, I mean, coffee is a pretty big part of society, and in many respects, I would have to say that coffee is also as bastardized as the rest of the consumables world. I mean, remember, while we talk about coffee from a very niche standpoint, a very tiny fraction of like the overall industry, coffee is a huge commodity in the world. You'll always hear coffee people say it's the second most traded commodity behind oil. I don't think that's true. I think that's a bit of bunk. But it's a very huge commodity that's traded around the world and affects world markets. I mean, it's a huge part of the economy. But so, and I don't know if any amount of coffee could ever cause like societal change in a necessarily positive way. I don't know. I guess I'm a pessimist about that. Page says Sinclair next door. Power plant says boo to the Sinclairs. After talking about this, I'll probably get my channel canceled on YouTube. And you'll know why. All right, so here in Maryland, like I said, I'm at a place called Meriwether Post Pavilion. You can kind of see here is the box office. So Meriwether Post Pavilion is a concert venue, outdoor concert venue, open air, really great venue. Like I've come to many concerts here. I saw Madonna here. I saw In Excess. Who else have I seen? I've seen Depeche Mode. Did I see Duran Duran here? I might have seen, no, I saw Duran Duran at the Nissan Pavilion in Virginia. So, but a lot of concerts happen here, and so many things are happening here. So it's a nice venue. If you ever get a chance to come down, it's really pleasant. You can get on the lawn seats, which are cheaper, and you can bring like a blanket. I don't know if they allow you to bring chairs, but you sit on the lawn. It's outdoors. It's nice. This is kind of like the handicap parking side. There's handicap parking here, and then over here is kind of like the staff entrance where you do where all the crew comes in and does their thing. So I like to hang out here because, I want to be part of the crew. Paige says, I've always wanted to see a show there, but don't want to drive quite that far. I mean, you're in the Carolinas, so yeah, this is far. Wolf Trap in Vienna is amazing. Yes, Wolf Trap. I saw the Roots at Wolf Trap last August. Man, that was a great show. If you ever get the chance to see the Roots in concert, Questlove on the drums, man, that is some good music. And then what else? They had Diggable Planets with them, and who else? They had someone else. Oh, why can't I remember now? But great show and a great venue. And then earlier this summer, for my Thursday night live stream, I was out here. Actually, I was across the street in front of the food market, because it's actually the food market's right over there. I don't know if you can see this, see that orange sculpture? That's the courtyard at the food market. And so I was sitting right there, and you could sit there and hear the music fairly well, clear. It was a big country music show, and I was listening to the country. I was like, oh man, this is good times. I need to do this more. So that's the nice thing. If you hear about a concert here at Meriwether and you don't want to go see them, there it is. Just go sit in the courtyard in front of the food market in Columbia, and you can hear. It's not going to be like you're there, like listening, like loudly, but you can hear it. Have conversation with your friends, talk, relax, get some food for takeout from the food market, sit down at the outdoor tables and just kind of chill. Oh, that's a good idea. I might have to remember that. Paige says, I saw the Roots with Brittany Howard at the concert for Charlotte. Oh, that's awesome. And if you like the Roots, you should catch the Free Nationals. Ooh, says Devin. All right. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, it's a nice day today. Like yesterday it was cold. I think it was colder yesterday. Here it's kind of just a light chill. So I've got my sweater, my Argyle sweater on. I was thinking I should get more sweaters. I don't know. What do you guys got going on for the weekend? It's still less than 60 degrees here. It's probably less than 60 now, but maybe because I'm sitting in the sun, so the sun kind of gives life energy. Yeah, I don't think we're above 60 either. We might be somewhere. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. So I've got to go over to a place called the Restore next because there's one down here. I was there last week. I went to the Restore because Habitat for Humanity has these restores, and sometimes the restores have really good tool selections, like used tools. Sometimes you get really good deals. Like last year I saw this, or earlier this year I went to the one close to me and I was like, there's a scroll saw by Grizzly, and I was like, oh, $50, I should buy it. Then I was like, oh, I'll get it next time. I came back a day or two later, somebody snapped up. So if there's something good, you got to snap on it, right? So last week I was there at this one here in Columbia, and I saw in the case they had these Skill batteries, right? Skill's the company that makes tools. They had these huge batteries for their lawnmowers, and I was like, they're cheap. They're like $40. I was like, whoa. And I was like, I think my brother has that lawn, because I think he told me they had that lawnmower. So I didn't buy it. I was like, I better not buy it, because what am I gonna buy it if he doesn't have, and he has like Still or something like that. So I didn't buy it. And I was like, I talked to him the other day, and I was like, you have a Skill lawnmower? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh. All right, when I go back, I'm gonna see if they still have it. I'll get you a battery, because batteries are expensive. Like if you get the DeWalt Power Stack batteries, which are the newer batteries, like better power, more power, man, they're pricey. Like $165 for one battery. You're like, whoa, can't buy that. Can't buy that. Devin says it's 80 degrees in Japan. Gosh, man, that would be nice. What part of Japan, though? If you tell me Hokkaido, I'm going to be really surprised. You're like, yeah, it's 80 in Sapporo today. You're like, what? Come on, man. But if you say that it's 80 in like Okinawa, okay, then I get it. I get it. I get it. What else is going on? This weekend I've got to go to, there's a big, so you guys know that I do the woodworking thing. I'm really into that. So my local Woodcraft is celebrating their 2nd anniversary here in Baltimore tomorrow. So they're having a lot of demos. And if you're in the area, if you want to see that, it might be kind of interesting. Maybe it's not. If you're not into it, you'll probably be like, what are these weirdos doing here? Just like anything, if you're uninitiated to something, you see a bunch of guys that are all geeking out over things, you're like, okay, freaks, what's wrong with you? Like one guy was asking me, I was asking on one of the forums yesterday, it's like, what kind of finish should I put on a briar pipe, for smoking, smoking pipes? And I was like, and all these guys are giving all these like answers, and I don't really have an answer for that. But some of my friends are really hardcore pipe geeks. Like they're super into it. Like they know everything about pipes. They got huge pipe collections. And of course I saw it at like 12:30 at night, so I'm not gonna call any of them and be like, hey man, what do you put on? But I put on the forum, I was like, so what you should do is maybe reach out to your local pipe guys or go to your local smoke shop and find a pipe guy there and ask him, because you know what? Pipe guys are super geeky about what they do. They will not just give you an answer, they will give you a definitive answer. Right, you have these people that are into something so hardcore, they give you definitively, there is no compromises, they are totally like, this is the only way. Otherwise you're doing it wrong. So I was like, just go ask them, they will know, and you can just follow along what they say. I think though that they put beeswax. I think, but who knows? Who knows? I've got a couple pipes, but I'm totally not into that. Devin says it's in Beppu. Beppu, I don't even know where Beppu is in Japan. And Peter says it's 90 degrees here, but Peter's in that place where they have the CIA listening station. Aren't you there? Is that where you are, Peter? In the middle of like the outback somewhere? Kent says it's 50 here, storm and heavy rain, but summer was very good, so no complaints. Well, you know what, Kent? I gotta say thank you, because you were kind enough to like tell us that it's 50 rather than, what would that be? 10 in Celsius? Is that right? I could be wrong. I'm not very quick at the conversions. But I imagine you would be like, oh yeah, it's 10 degrees here. Like, oh, and everyone's like, what does that even mean? I don't know. PowerPlan says, climate change over the last 8 years here is no joke. Summer has crept well into October. Well, here in America, where it's chilly in October, obviously, climate change is a hoax. It doesn't exist here, right? It's like, it's global warming, but it's cold. This is why we have MAGA. This is why. Beppu is an Uita Kyushu. Oh, okay, gotcha. 10C. Oh, I did get it right. All right. I'm not that bad then. I'm not that bad. Yeah, so beyond the Woodcraft. So Woodcraft is having their second anniversary. If you're around, they've got free hot dogs and popcorn and sodas. Perhaps not the best lunch, but you know, it's something. And I'll eat that instead of spending money at McDonald's or whatever. Like I went to a barbecue joint yesterday. South Carolina barbecue. This place is known for South Carolina. And Paige, I think you're from South Carolina, if I remember correctly, right? Like, I don't know what barbecue is like in South Carolina because I've never had it there. I've had North Carolina Eastern barbecue, pulled, you know, whole hog barbecue, which I think is, if you go to Wilbur's, if you go to Wilbur's in Goldsboro, North Carolina, awesome. Skylight Inn and Air, which is supposed to be the best in America. I thought Wilbur's was better. But this place, man, they say they do South Carolina style barbecue. Man, I just don't think it's very good. Like it just never hits it right. Like yesterday, and maybe I made the mistake yesterday. I was like, I'm gonna get the brisket sandwich. And you know, South Carolina barbecue is not brisket, that's Texas. And so I ordered this brisket sandwich. It's a sliced brisket from the flap. No, not the flap, but the main loin, right? So it's a little bit drier because it doesn't have as much fat. And it's on the drier side, which is not necessarily uncommon, but no juiciness. And it's also kind of like tough. So you're like, okay, so they high temperature cook it, they cook it fast, and it doesn't have any of the unctuousness that you want from, like, and my problem is that maybe if I had just been a Baltimore guy and never left and like only had that barbecue, it'd be awesome. Like I know a lot of people that like, they love this place. They're like, oh, this is the best barbecue. And I'm like, really? Have you not had barbecue anywhere else in America? Because if you had Texas barbecue, like if you've done the tour of Lockhart and Luling and then up into Austin, like you would know that, man, there's a standard for brisket. And this is not it. I was like, this is not it. So, I don't know. Anyway, but what do we have to do? So I got a birthday party to attend tomorrow night. And then, oh, by the way, next week, that reminds me, next week I'll be traveling to Boston. So our schedule for live streams next week is going to be, I have no idea at this point. Almost certainly not on Monday, because that's the day we're planning to make the drive to Boston. And then, I don't know after that point. I don't know, it may be, we'll have to play by ear. So that's one thing to keep in mind for next week. For sure, no live stream on Monday. And then for the rest of the week, it may be helter-skelter for the rest of the week. All right, so I guess that's going to be it for today. Always good to see all of you. Thank you for hanging out as well, as again. Oh, Southern Virginia. Okay, sorry. I knew South something. My apologies. Oh, no wonder you're like, oh, I could drive to Wolf Trap, but Meriwether's far. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it now. Oh yeah, I visited King Arthur when in New Hampshire. Ooh, that's one thing I'm thinking about doing. Is I'm going to try to get around while I'm up there. Like I want to visit a friend of mine that has that coffee shop in New Hampshire, Lucas Coffee Roasting. Then I've got another friend, Bob, who owns Portland Coffee Roasting in Maine. Actually, one of my friends is one of King Arthur's like known creators, I guess, ambassadors. Gesina Bullock Prado is an old friend of mine. She married a good friend of mine, Ray, and Ray and I became friends on my very first movie in Hollywood. We worked on a movie called Major League 2 together. He was the storyboard artist, and I was doing casting. We just got to be really close friends, and then he eventually married Gesina, and she's really wonderful. And oddly enough, she's actually the sister of Sandra Bullock. So my real claim to fame in life is that I have slept in Sandra Bullock's bed. Which is really their spare bedroom. So whenever anyone comes to stay, they stay in that bedroom. And when her sister comes, she stays there too. So I'm like, oh, that's terrible. That's a terrible thing to say. Prapan says, I just walk around Cambridge, so relaxing. You know, I don't really get to Cambridge because my aunt really lives in a place called Hull, which is about 45 minutes south of Boston on the coast, on the bay side facing Boston. So it's actually south of Quincy. So I never really get into Cambridge, and then you have to park and it's like, oh, forget it. I'll go to Boston for like pretty much one thing, and that's to go to a place called Belle Isle Seafood over in Waltham. Man, I think a friend of mine from Boston turned me on to this place 15, 20 years ago. And I was like, man, this is great. Lobster roll and any kind of seafood, really just delicious, delicious food. Like you hear about these other places, Legal Seafoods, all these other joints like in Boston, but you go to Waltham and man, worth the drive. It's a bit of a haul, but worth the drive. And it's cash only if you ever go. So they do have ATM, but cash only. Well worth it. Like I'll drive there. So I'm trying to see, maybe I'll go to New Hampshire. What I want to do is also go up to Maine, because not only do I have friends in coffee there, I've got one of my old dearest friends. She's a librarian in South Portland, so I want to go hang out with her for a little bit. And then there's a tool company up there called Lee Nielsen. They make hand planes, very nice quality. I want to go visit them and like check out their place. So there's a lot of things I would like to do while I'm up there, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Everything's kind of like dependent on making sure my aunt gets settled and is well cared for before I can leave. So that's why I'm not really sure what the schedule's going to be like. And I'm not even sure right now how long I will be away. Like I may be there 2 weeks. I've even prepared all of our wholesale clients for 2 weeks worth of coffee so that they would be, in case I don't come back next week, they'll be cared for. All right, so that's going to be it for today. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. As always, good to see all of you. Have a wonderful weekend, and into next week, I will post either a notification for the live stream itself, or I'll post on the community post to let everyone know what's happening. So we're probably going back next summer, and I'm going to convince the boyfriend. Oh yes, definitely convince. Definitely convince. All right, so have a great one, and ciao ciao.